My brother stole the family business, ran it into the ground, and now my parents want me to save it. Hi, Reddit. I'm struggling with a massive family conflict and don't know what to do. For some background, I'm a 33F, and my family owns a small but successful restaurant that's been in business for over 25 years. My parents started it when I was a kid, and growing up, it was our life. I worked there after school, on weekends, and even during summers in college. I love the business and hope to take it over one day. Or so I thought. Enter my older brother, Nick, 35. Nick has always been the golden child. He's charming, confident, and my parents adore him, but he's also irresponsible. While I worked hard at the restaurant, Nick spent his 20s hopping from one failed business venture to another. Still, my parents believed in him, often giving him money to invest in his ideas. None of them ever worked out. About 2 years ago, my dad started talking about retiring. I assumed I'd take over the restaurant since I had been deeply involved in running it for years. But then, Nick swooped in with what he called a bold vision to modernize the business. He convinced my parents that he could take the restaurant to the next level. Before I knew it, they'd signed the business over to him. I was heartbroken. When I confronted my parents, they told me, "Nick needs this more than you do. You're doing fine on your own." I was furious but decided to step back and focus on my own career, hoping for the best. Spoiler alert, it wasn't the best. Fast forward to now. Nick's vision for the restaurant was a disaster. He fired loyal employees, replaced them with underpaid friends, and spent a fortune on unnecessary renovations that left the place unrecognizable. On top of that, he ignored customer feedback and raised prices so much that regulars stopped coming. Within 18 months, the restaurant was on the brink of bankruptcy. And here's the kicker. My parents are now asking me to step in and fix it. They told me they can't stand to see the family business fail, and begged me to help. Nick, of course, hasn't apologized. Instead, he said, "You're the one who's good at this stuff. Just do your thing." I don't even know where to start. Part of me wants to save the restaurant because it means so much to me. But another part of me feels used and resentful. Why should I clean up Nick's mess when he'll probably just take credit for my work later? Am I wrong for wanting to walk away? Update 1. Hi, Reddit. I wanted to thank everyone for your advice and give you an update. The last 3 weeks have been intense. After a lot of thought, I decided to have a serious sit-down with my parents and Nick. I told them I'd consider helping, but only under very specific conditions. Here's what I proposed. My parents would take back ownership of the restaurant. I would take over as manager with full control of operations and decisions. Nick would have no involvement whatsoever. To my surprise, my parents agreed. They were desperate and admitted they'd made a mistake trusting Nick. But of course, Nick wasn't having it. He blew up during the meeting, accusing me of trying to steal his dream. He said I didn't understand the pressure of running a business and that I'd fail just like he did. The irony was almost laughable. After his tantrum, Nick stormed out, and my parents were visibly shaken. They kept saying things like, "You know how Nick is," as if that excused his behavior. But I stood firm. I told them I wouldn't lift a finger unless he was completely out of the picture. They eventually agreed and officially transferred the restaurant back into their name. I've spent the last 3 weeks diving into the mess Nick left behind. The finances are worse than I thought. Massive debt, unpaid suppliers, and barely enough cash flow to stay open. The customer base is almost non-existent, and the staff he hired is untrained and unreliable. It's going to be a long road to recovery, but I'm determined to make it work. As for Nick, he's been sulking and avoiding the family. He told mutual friends that I stole the restaurant from him and made him look bad. Honestly, I don't have the energy to care. I'm too busy trying to save what's left of our family legacy. Update 2. Hi again, Reddit. It's been 6 months since my last update, and I finally have some good news to share. The restaurant is alive and thriving again. It hasn't been easy. I spent the first few months cutting costs, renegotiating with suppliers, and bringing back the loyal employees Nick had fired. I also reverted some of his ridiculous changes, like the overpriced menu and gaudy renovations. The regulars slowly started returning, and word spread that the place was back to its roots. It felt amazing to see familiar faces again, Financially, we're not out of the woods yet, but we're on track. I've been working 12-hour days to keep things running smoothly, but it's worth it. The restaurant means so much to me, and seeing it come back to life has been incredibly rewarding. As for Nick, he's still bitter. He's been telling anyone who will listen that I sabotaged him and took advantage of his hard work. My parents have tried to mediate, but I told them I'm done discussing Nick. If he wants to blame me for his failures, that's his problem. Speaking of my parents, our relationship is complicated. They've apologized for their decisions, but there's still tension. I think they're starting to realize how much they took me for granted over the years. I'm not sure if things will ever fully go back to the way they were, but I'm okay with that. For now, I'm focused on the restaurant and the future. To anyone out there dealing with entitled family members, stand your ground. It's not easy, but sometimes you have to put yourself first, even if it means upsetting the people you love. Thanks again for all your support. I couldn't have done this without you. So, what do you think? Did I do the right thing? Let me know in the comments below.